Be seated. At first glance, this gospel story of the teenage Jesus in the temple is a bit of an outlier. I looked at it when Reed called me up and said, "Can you fill in again for me this Sunday?" And I thought, well, it depends on what gospel you picked. But it was too late for that. I couldn't retreat to being an usher and stick Ed Fairfield with preaching. This story appears only in St. Luke's gospel, and it's full of temptations for a preacher to trivialize it. Especially if you're feeling kind of preached out after all the Christmas round of sermons. You can use it as a springboard to preach, for instance, about raising children. Cutesy stuff about rebellious adolescents who turn out to be obedient kids at heart. Or you can take the moral lesson approach. Shake your finger at any adolescent kids that may be around and tell them to put their Xboxes away and listen to their elders. Well, I thought I don't want to do either of those. I've got to go a little bit deeper. When our sermons are put on the website, Kim likes to have a title for them. And I'm not used to doing titles for sermons, so it's always a bit of a challenge. But anticipating that, I thought, well, what I'm going to say, how about for a title, Teenage Ninja Jesus? So if you get lost as I proceed with the sermon, you just chew on that, Teenage Ninja Jesus, and tell me whether there's anything to it or whether it's just cutesy. Actually, leaving cutesiness behind, like all of the Christmas stories that beginning back with the pageant, these stories are all hold, as it were, in embryo, the whole of the gospel. And if you unpack them, they have marvelous riches to impart to us. And that's very much true, I think, with this one. First of all, there are all these references to Jewish piety. The Holy Family go up to Jerusalem for the festival of Passover. Passover is the great Jewish festival which celebrates the Exodus, the defining event, really, in Judaism. So there's one clue. Another one is that it closely notes that Jesus is 12 years old. Well, 12-year-old puberty is when Jewish males became adults, took on responsibility and accountability under the Hebrew law. So here we have Jesus, in effect, his bar mitzvah, I suppose, although they didn't have those back at that time. But he's an adult now, taking on the responsibility of studying the Torah and becoming a son of the Torah. He's sitting with the teachers in the temple, listening and asking questions. And it's amazing what his answers are. Now, I think all of this Jewish stuff is not recounted just to give us some sort of local color or historical references. It's a reminder of something very important, which is that Jesus was born a Jew, he died a Jew. Everything he taught, everything he did was consistent with his Judaism. That was who he was. My best friend, now sadly departed, named David Stein, once said to me, he said, "John, I don't know why you spend so much time thinking about being saved and salvation." He said, "I'm a Jew, I was born saved." Well, there's that to it. You're born into it. It is who you are. It is your entire life, your entire being. Now, that's hard for us to grasp because we're children of a number of historical strands. Most importantly, I think the Reformation and the Enlightenment. So that what we've taken is, instead of Christianity being this holistic thing, all of what we are, all of how we see the world, it becomes, well, it's our religious piece. You know, it's like, well, I'm an American and I'm also a Christian. You know, I'm a this priest or a lawyer or a doctor or a teacher, and I'm also a Christian. It's my folder that says religion across the top. But we're not talking here about religion in that sense, a separate thing. That's what secularism has done to us. What Jesus is talking about all through the Gospels is this is the whole of it, who you are. You are a child of God. You are called to see the world as God sees it, to treat other people and yourself as God treats you, to turn the worldly world upside down into something which Jesus calls the kingdom of God. So I think that's the first thing here, that we see Jesus growing up within this whole thing, not a religion, but a whole way of being and seeing. And we're reminded that that's what his ministry and his mission are about for us. But then he does something with that, doesn't he? There's this trick in the gospel language in which, first of all, Mary, the earthly mother, sort of, you know, Mary, if you want a helicopter mom, that's the Virgin Mary. She's always there fussing, and she's always getting put down or brushed aside, at least until the very end on the cross by her son, saying, you know, mother, stop fussing. You know, it's not about your little stuff. It's about something bigger. So she says, why did you put me and your father, small, lowercase f, why did you put us to this worry? Where were you? We didn't know. To which he says, did you not know that I must be about my Father's, capital F, my Father God's, be in his house, or you can also translate it, be about his affairs. In other words, mother, didn't you know that I'm focused on something bigger than simply being the good boy? Today would have been my own mother's 120th birthday. She almost made it to 95, and she had a will she would have made it to 120 if God had permitted that, but she didn't. But when I was a junior in college, and I wrote my parents, in those days there was no instant messaging, and telephone calls were expensive, so you didn't, it was for emergency. So I wrote them a letter and I said, you know, I think after college, I want to go to seminary and I want to be a priest. Oh my God. So my mother says, she said, why would you do that? You're throwing your life away. It's all about having tea with little old ladies. So, you know, today I would say, well, now I'm a little old man, and actually, I like little old ladies and I like having tea, but it's about a lot more than that, you know? It's a lot more than that. And that's what's going on here. Jesus takes and twists that lower F family into a capital F family, the lower F Father into a capital F Father in heaven, and says, I'm about breaking out of the confines of a religion, and Judaism is a religion very much centered on family. That's one of its virtues. But I want to expand that. This domesticated religion becomes too obsessed on the observation of the particularities of piety. You know, don't step on the cracks in the sidewalk. This is about opening things up to see them and to live them as God sees them and lives them. This is about God coming to usher you into God's great world, God's great family. So that's, I think, the other part of this gospel. This is about the incarnation. God, Jesus, returns to his family, is obedient, increases in holiness and wisdom, keeps on growing. But he's in the world. He's not of the world. He doesn't see the world in worldly terms. He sees and lives life in godly terms, so that we who are also in the world may follow him and enlarge our vision and our hearts. Not a bad gospel then in the end for this first Sunday in a new year. The teenage ninja Jesus. Thanks be to God.